door stood and looked back to Sam for some confirmation as to what he was hearing. The three jailers outside the cell heard it too. They looked at one another, then stood and peered down a dark hallway, shouting to a guard somewhere out of Driscoll's sight. One of the men made a joke, and the three laughed. The Afghani politician looked at Driscoll and said, "They say it is President guilty for me to look for you in the recorder." Sam sighed. It wasn't the first time they'd heard Pakistani army choppers overhead. They always faded after a couple of seconds. Driscoll turned to go sit back down, and then, boom! A low crack erupted somewhere above him. Sam turned back to the hall. Machine gun fire came soon after, and then another explosion. "Everybody get down on the floor!" Driscoll shouted to the other prisoners. If this was a rescue attempt by the PDF, and if there was any shooting down here, even out in the hall, then there would be ricocheted rounds banging all around this stone-walled basement, and friendly fire would hurt just as bad as enemy fire. Sam started to look for some measure of cover himself, but one of the jailers came to his cell. The man's eyes were wide with fear and determination. Sam got the impression this fucker was going to use him as a human shield if the PDF made it down into the basement. They'd been off the helicopter for nearly 2 minutes, and Jack Ryan had not yet seen the enemy. First, they dropped into a knee-deep trash pit some 100 yards from the target. Jack could not understand why the pilot had dumped them so far from their target until, upon running closer to the compound, they saw several rows of electricity poles and wires crisscrossing the open ground in front of the main gate. Then, while Chavez set the water-tamped breaching charge at the perimeter gate, Jack, Dom, and Muhammad watched his six. They dropped to their knees and scanned the dark rooftops and gates of the cluster of walled compounds on the other side of the rocky plain, and they kept their eyes on the corners of the wall of the Haqqani compound to the north and south. Above them, the big Puma choppers circled, occasionally emitting jackhammer bursts from door guns or staccato cracks from Zarar commandos, firing their small arms into the compound. A 20mm cannon fired from one of the fat birds sent explosive rounds into the hillside beyond the compound in order to let the 40 Taliban supposedly in the barracks know that they needed to stay right where they were. Finally, over the hellacious sounds from above, Jack heard, "Fire in the hole!" and he found cover by pressing himself against the 14-foot-high baked brick wall. Just seconds after this came the boom of the breaching charge, blowing the black oak and iron gates of the compound in like tossed toothpicks. And then, just like that, they were inside the walls, running for the main building 30 yards ahead. Ryan saw the long, low barracks some 40 yards off his right shoulder, and just as he looked, tracer rounds kicked up sparks near the dark structure from machine guns fired from above. Jack was tied on Dom's heels, and Muhammad was just behind Jack. All the men running behind Chavez, who led the way with his AUG at his shoulder. Jack was surprised when Chavez fired his rifle ahead. Ryan looked to see where the bullets were impacting, and saw they were tearing up a small building or garage to the left of the main house. From there, a bright light flashed and a rocket-propelled grenade launched into the sky, but it seemed to have been poorly aimed. Ding fired again and again. Ryan got his P90 up to send some rounds downrange himself, but the team arrived at the wall of the main house before he even found a target in the night. They scooted down the wall, closer to the front door, Ding still in the lead. Chavez nodded to Caruso, who quickly raced across the closed door and pressed up against the wall on the other side. Chavez nodded to Ryan, who started to pull a stun grenade from the pouch hanging on his right thigh. But as he reached for it, he saw a second and a third RPG flying through the air, launched from the grounds behind the main building. Both grenades looked like they were perfectly aimed at a Puma